No. What's happened is it's just hanging over us, you know? We're just waiting.
Have you noticed any more cars following you or people watching you or anything like that?
Well,
not to make you paranoid or anything.
Well, the fact that we were subpoenaed and the fact I was kind of chased around a little bit. By the way, I didn't run away. I just, I've had threats from people in Colombia and people in Florida against my body, against my life. So I take things real serious and cautious, and I pay attention.
Threats in response to your activism, to your protesting?
Right, to protesting the killing of Colombian trade unionists. Every week in Colombia, a trade unionist is murdered by a death squad.
And so you've had death threats because you object to that?
Yes, because I organize and speak out. So with the FBI raids, it's made people very aware and a little bit paranoid, but they're much more careful, and they find themselves looking out the windows of their house more often and much more careful about what they say on the phone to their family and friends. So
you mentioned that the woman who served you the subpoena was kind of shaking. What about the other agents with whom you interacted? What can you give an idea of how did they seem? I mean, in terms of did they seem arrogant? Did they seem timid? What was their general demeanor in dealing with you?
Well, I think the approach they have is sort of one of assuming that you've done something wrong and you're in trouble. So they have, they're not exactly intimidating. I don't intimidate too easily, I don't think. But they definitely have an attitude of you're going to answer some questions, and I think they were surprised that we declined to answer any questions. And, so then they switched tact and tried to start a conversation. And we just said we don't care to discuss anything with you, But they weren't unfriendly. They were clearly there to serve the subpoena and go about their business. And there was three of them together, and the two men were a little more stern looking than the woman.
If you had been more receptive to intimidation, do you think they would have pursued that? I get the impression they tried, and when you just said, hey, we're not going to do that, they backed away.
They're absolutely trained to do that. And, their goal is to get as much information from you as they can. And
you see, folks, I tell you, they're the product of their training. I tell folks that all the time. Now, you've said that you think U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald is on a campaign to engage in political repression. That's a pretty broad statement. Beyond just your situation, on what do you base such an allegation?
Well, I think he's politically motivated. And you saw with, the Valerie Plame case in Washington, D.C., where, he really let the government officials who revealed her identity, he let them off the hook and, found Scooter Libby responsible for that. That's my view, I also think
go ahead.
Yeah. I also think there's the case of Rod Blagojevich where, a lot of people don't make this connection, but they arrested Blagojevich 2 days after he announced that the state of Illinois would stop doing business with the Bank of America because the Bank of America refused to give a loan to the business owner of the Republic Windows and Doors factory. And so the workers had occupied the factory demanding that, someone take action to keep their jobs there and to keep a factory open right here in, the United States. And it's interesting that, Blagojevich, I've actually met him, and he's a politician's politician. I'll say that for him. I'm not a big fan of his either. But I kept telling people he hasn't committed a crime. He's done what all the politicians do in every state of the country.
Yeah, but they're all committing crimes.
Yeah, in that sense, I'm with you. But, he didn't do what Fitzgerald claimed, and sure enough, he got off on all charges except the one of lying to the FBI. And I don't think you could find a politician who hasn't lied. So.
No, I would agree with that. What exactly is Stop FBI Repression? How did you come to be spokesman for the group?
Well, I'm one of the 14 people who were subpoenaed originally, and now there's 9 more who were subpoenaed in December, so there's 23 of us altogether. But I've worked with those 14 people, or most of them, for close to 20 years. We have a lot of groups we belong to. I've been a spokesperson for our international solidarity work around Colombia. So I felt very comfortable saying I'll take the lead on speaking out and trying to get the word out. And we've talked to most of the major media, and we're happy to talk to anyone who wants to interview us. We have 23 people who can do interviews. So that's how I got involved in the spokesperson.
Now, what kind of effect is the group having on the FBI, on how it is perceived and how it's behaving?
Well, I think Fitzgerald and, his grand jury and the FBI and even the White House and Eric Holder, the U.S. Attorney, I think they're surprised at the outpouring of support we've gained. Like I said, we had 70 protests in the 2 weeks following the raids. We already have 30 organized for January 25th when the next 9 people are supposed to appear for subpoenas. And we've had money coming in so we can organize and pay the lawyers, and we've had all kinds of media outlets cover our story. And we haven't even tried to reach out internationally next. We're gonna do that.
Well, yeah, I always thought the FBI was supposed to be a U.S. agency, but we see FBI offices all over the world, and where did that come from? So yeah, I'd say international outreach is probably worthwhile. How do people get involved with what you're doing? How do they become fellow activists? Just because you haven't been directly abused by the FBI doesn't mean you don't care about the issue.
Well, people can contact us at stopfbi.net. They can write to us from there, and I answer most of the letters personally. And again, January 25th, people are organizing protests in big cities and small cities, from New York to L.A. and places like Kalamazoo in between, So.
I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, I don't know how many people do, but just before the events of September 11, 2001, the FBI was under investigation for corruption, incompetence, big incompetence stuff going on there. And suddenly, the events of September 11, 2001, and the FBI is our best friend. Now,
all got wiped away.
Now, I'm wondering whether or not the attention being brought to the FBI, if you anticipate that some kind of an event will occur to distract people again from focusing on FBI excesses.
Well, I suppose there's the possibility of something bad happening, but we're not the people motivating it. I think we're the people trying to put an end to the wars and put an end to the fighting. And we think that the U.S. government often has created the problem for themselves. I'm not a conspiracy theory person either, but I think, they use people and throw them away, and then those people, want to get angry with them and, do things that are bad for the American people.
Well, and I do think when you push people so far and you keep pushing and you don't stop and you don't let up, sooner or later they're going to push back. It's just human nature.
Right, and they have a right to,
Absolutely.
People in Palestine and Colombia, they want the things that most Americans want, but, they're being pushed off their land.
Yeah, and ultimately they push back. Tom, it has been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you being with us, and I wish you the very, very best, you and your wife and your family, your 5.5-year-old daughter. The website, folks, www.stopfbi.net. We'll also have it posted on the Global Freedom Report website. Tom, thanks so much for spending this time with us.
Thanks for supporting free speech.